Everyone says your Shih Tzu's house training problems come from a tiny bladder or stubborn streak, but that's industry fiction. The real reason? Most Shih Tzus are trapped in a cycle of trauma before you ever bring them home, engineered by profit-driven breeders. The 2024 Horrible 100 report blew this open, exposing how early separation and overcrowding create dogs neurologically wired for anxiety, not obedience. If the real cause isn't size or stubbornness, what happened to these dogs? And who keeps hiding the truth? Ask any pet store clerk or browse breeder websites, and the same explanation repeats like a script. Shih Tzus have accidents because of their tiny bladders. The phrase turns up in handouts, FAQ pages, and even sales pitches, always with a reassuring smile. Small dogs just need extra patience. It's not your fault, it's just how they're built. These lines aren't accidental. They're industry talking points designed to keep buyers from asking uncomfortable questions. The myth of the small bladder shifts blame away from breeding practices and onto the dog's body or the owner's expectations. You'll hear that Shih Tzus are stubborn, that they can't hold it as long as bigger breeds, that accidents are just part of the package. But when you look past the sales pitch, the facts don't hold up. There's no scientific proof that Shih Tzus have less bladder capacity than other toy breeds, or that their accidents are inevitable. Responsible breeders and veterinary behaviorists know that well-raised Shih Tzus, given the right start in life, house-train just like any other dog their size. The small bladder excuse is a convenient shield. It protects breeders and pet stores from scrutiny, letting them avoid questions about early separation, overcrowding, and the emotional fallout of mass production. The real issue isn't in your dog's body, it's in the stories the industry tells and the conditions they work so hard to hide. Inspection records from the 2024 Horrible 100 report detail a pattern that stretches from breeding barns to pet store shelves. Facility logs show Shih Tzu puppies weaned at just 6 weeks, packed into wire cages stacked 3 high, and readied for shipment days before their bodies or minds are prepared. One Wisconsin breeder, cited 3 times in a single year, kept dozens of puppies in overcrowded pens, cleaning only when inspectors were expected. Despite repeated violations, these facilities continued operating under renewed licenses, with little more than warning letters and minor fines, transport invoices, obtained through advocacy group FOIA requests, reveal how puppies move from these breeding sites to brokers and on to major retail outlets. While redacted for privacy, the records confirm the path. Breeder license numbers, shipment dates, and breed descriptions, Shih Tzus among them, transferred in bulk across state lines. A whistleblower, a former transport driver, describes the routine. Every Thursday, the 6-week-olds went into travel cages. They'd cry and soil themselves before the first stop. We delivered to pet stores that never asked questions about where the dogs came from. An excerpt from the report lists over 800 welfare violations at USDA-licensed facilities in 2024 alone, with no dogs removed and most breeders continuing to supply the market. Broker records, though often redacted, have traced microchipped puppies from these same facilities to retail pet stores in multiple states. The paper trail may be fragmented, but the evidence converges. The majority of Shih Tzu puppies for sale in pet shops and online platforms originate from breeding operations repeatedly cited for overcrowding, premature weaning, and chronic neglect. This isn't a series of isolated incidents. It's a supply chain built on systemic misconduct, documented in inspection logs and transport manifests, and confirmed by those who witnessed it firsthand. A dog's ability to hold its bladder is shaped by the brain and nervous system, not just the size of its body. In Shih Tzus, the wiring that controls elimination is set during a critical window between 8 and 12 weeks of age. Neuroscientists call this period the foundation for stress regulation. When puppies learn to connect the urge to go with the right time and place, remove a puppy from its mother before this window closes, and the brain's stress circuits, especially the HPA axis, remain unfinished. The result is a nervous system that reacts to fear or loneliness with a surge of hormones like cortisol. This hormone, released during panic or separation, shuts down the signals that normally keep bladder and bowel control in check. Veterinary studies show that anxious small breed dogs can experience cortisol spikes of up to 400% in just minutes after being left alone. In these moments, the body's emergency systems override learned behaviors, and elimination becomes involuntary. This isn't a question of willpower or stubbornness. It's a physiological chain reaction set in motion by early experiences that the dog can't control. Behaviorists explain that when a Shih Tzu has been denied the full 10 to 12 weeks of maternal care, the risk of lifelong elimination problems doubles. The science is clear. The root of the issue lies in disrupted development of the brain's stress response, not in the bladder itself. For many Shih Tzus, every accident is a trace of unfinished neurological business, written into the body by what happened long before house training even began. When Daisy arrived at her new home, she was already carrying the scars of her early life. Shelter intake records showed she had been separated from her mother at just 6 weeks old. Her first days with her adopter were a blur of accidents and anxious pacing. Every time the front door closed, Daisy would urinate on the rug, even if she had just been outside. Hoping to help, her adopter tried crate training, following advice from pet store pamphlets. But the crate sent Daisy into a panic. She barked, scratched at the door until her paws bled, and soiled herself within minutes. The next morning, the vet ruled out any medical cause and referred her to a board-certified veterinary behaviorist. The specialist notes described classic elimination anxiety, likely rooted in early separation and confinement trauma. Instead of punishment or stricter routines, Daisy's therapy plan focused on safety and predictability. Her adopter eliminated the crate and set up a quiet corner with familiar bedding. Short, positive departures, stepping out for just a minute, then returning with calm reassurance, became part of their daily rhythm. Accidents were cleaned up silently, with no scolding. Over the next 6 weeks, Daisy's progress was slow but steady. The first accident-free day felt like a miracle. By week 12, her log showed 4 full weeks without a single slip. The bond between Daisy and her adopter grew stronger with every small victory. What had once been a cycle of panic and punishment became a story of patience, trust, and healing, proof that trauma-informed care can rewrite even the most troubled beginnings. Every owner facing house training setbacks can start with a clear, evidence-based plan. The first step is to rule out medical causes. Schedule a full veterinary exam, including urinalysis, to check for infections or metabolic issues. If your Shih Tzu gets a clean bill of health, look for key signs of trauma-driven elimination, accidents that follow periods of stress, regression after training success, or soiling that happens mostly when you're away. Dogs with anxiety-linked house soiling often show other symptoms: pacing, excessive barking, destructive chewing, or sudden withdrawal. If these patterns sound familiar, ask your vet for a referral to a board-certified veterinary behaviorist. These specialists use clinical screening protocols to distinguish between training gaps and psychological wounds, and can help you map out a therapy plan. Early action and the right diagnosis give your dog the best chance at real recovery. Choosing where to get your next dog is more than a personal decision. It's a chance to demand better from the entire industry. Every time you ask a breeder for proof of weaning age and socialization practices, you're pushing for transparency that most commercial operations avoid. Insist on written records that puppies stayed with their mothers until at least 10 weeks, and walk away from anyone who won't provide them. If you're already caring for a traumatized Shih Tzu, share your experience and support petitions calling for stricter breeder licensing and mandatory disclosure of housing conditions. Even small actions matter. Sign the petition linked in the description and start the 2-minute separation drill at home today to help your dog build trust. When enough owners demand change, at the vet's office, at the pet store, And in local legislation, breeders and retailers are forced to listen. Healing starts at home, but real reform takes all of us. In 2024, the Horrible 100 report documented over 100 commercial breeding facilities still operating with repeated animal welfare violations, including overcrowding and premature separation of Shih Tzu puppies. The evidence is clear. The industry's small bladder excuse is contradicted by inspection logs, veterinary behaviorist testimony, and transport records. Early trauma, not size, is the primary cause of house training failures. Yet no federal agency has released a full list of breeder-to-retailer supply chains, leaving gaps in public accountability. Scientific studies confirm that Shih Tzus separated at 6 to 8 weeks face up to twice the risk of anxiety-linked elimination. Today, many owners still receive scripted misinformation instead of support. The facts demand a shift. Effective solutions require trauma-informed care, not punishment. Until full transparency is enforced, the burden remains on owners and advocates to demand ethical breeding and proper early care. House soiling in Shih Tzus is not a failure of training. It is a documented consequence of systemic neglect.